Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And firstly, I'd like to thank the CEO and the officers for putting this budget together. They've done a magnificent job in the current climate that we're in. And I'm happy to support this alternative, but I just find a couple of discrepancies, and I just wanted to understand a little bit more where it says in point 2 to request the CEO to come back and find projects that can be funded from the Open Space Reserve. And as Councillor Isa said, we have quite a substantial amount of money in there. And for me, the Centreway Aviation themed playground is fully funded by the Open Space Reserve. And I just can't understand why we are now taking it out of the system when it doesn't affect the bottom line, it doesn't affect the budget, it actually is coming from money that's sitting in the bank doing nothing. And this is playground, ladies and gentlemen. This is a playground for children. It's not, a small little entity. And this is in a shopping centre where it's now a thriving shopping centre. The Mediterranean Festival, we've all been there. How wonderful is it? But did you actually notice the kids there? There were kids all on the play equipment that got there, and then there were others standing around wanting to play on there and they couldn't. This will just add value to that area. It'll add value to the traders, to the community, to the children. It'll add value to the children. Go there on a Friday afternoon or a Saturday. You'll see them. They'll enjoy it. So for me, I'd like to make a slight amendment to remove that from this alternative, but I've got a couple of more that I want to go by. The scope of the synthetic renewal at Boeing Reserve. Now, we either do it or we don't. You can't do first base and second base and forget about third and fourth. You can't do it in two sections or reduce it. So we're either going to have to do it in total, or we just don't do it at all and defer it to next year for a future council. But the one that I'm sort of really worried about as well is the reduce the fleet renewal program by $500,000. Now, I don't know, anybody who's managed a fleet in a corporation or a company, there's always a plan for renewal after 3, 4, 5 years. It's a financial plan, so you get maximum trading on the vehicles that you have, and then that way you buy new ones. So if we're going to reduce this by $500,000, this could end up costing us more next year. It could cost us more, and I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen when companies defer the renewal program and ends up costing them twice as much. So we've got to really think about this. Secondly, the local road network renewal by $500,000.
Time extension, Councillor Sypek, 2 minutes.
I don't know about you, but whenever I see a survey that council happens, what's in the top 3? People want the roads, the potholes fixed. They want the local roads to be drivable so they don't wreck their cars. And to take money out of that, that's one of the priorities that the community constantly tell us, constantly. And we're going to now scrap it. So I'm just sort of, I'm just sort of concerned about that. So, Mr Mayor, I'd like to put in a minor amendment to...
What is your amendment?
To remove the line item of the Centreway Aviation Centre, so that way it's still in the budget because it's fully funded by Open Space Reserve.
So your amendment, Councillor Sypek, is point A3 and the second bullet point deletion?
Correct.
Thank you for your amendment. Is there a seconder?
Well, hang on, I haven't finished.
Sorry, you had further amendments? Sorry, what were your further amendments?
I'd like to remove reduce the fleet renewal program as well, and the local roads.
Thank you. So the last point to just read...
The leisure centre's at 30,000.
The leisure centre facilities renewal and upgrade works by 30,000. Councillor Sypek, can I get you to check the screen on that last point? Is that correct?
Oh, I can't see it.
So it says reduce the leisure facilities renewal and upgrade works by 30,000, and then the other points deleted. Is that correct?
Which other? Oh, yeah, the rest
That's
of it.
correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillors, are you aware of what's been moved as an amendment? Is there a seconder? Councillor Byrne. Councillor Sypek, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Look, I think I've spoken to it because, like I said, with the aviation theme park, we got a report back from the officers who told us that its total project cost of $200,000 for the open space is coming from open space reserve. That, I think, is a no-brainer. I don't think you have to be an accountant or anything to understand that it's coming from open space reserve, which has been contributed to by the community. So, you know, we're not talking, you know, millions of dollars. We're talking $200,000 for the children. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen, for the children. The once again, the synthetic pitch at Boeing Reserve, you can't do half a baseball pitch and then do the other half whenever we want. We either do it or we don't. So that's got to be removed or stay in there. The fleet, I think I've spoken about the fleet quite understandably, and I think if you know running a fleet, it might cost us more. It will probably, most likely, it will cost us more. And the local roads. Look back in your emails. How many times have people complained about the local roads? How many times? We can't cut the local road funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Councillor Byrne, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Can I ask a point of clarification to
Yes.
start, please? And that is just to confirm that what was moved did not include...
That's correct.
So the Boeing, the synthetic renewal at Boeing Reserve was not removed as in the amendment,
No.
as per on the screen.
That's correct.
Yes, so I'll speak. I don't want to be a playground killer here, because that's what I feel like we're doing. I think that we should be spending so much more money on playgrounds than what we currently do. I understand that we've got a lot of things to do within this municipality, but playgrounds are just so loved. I suppose I'm almost at the age where my kids are, you know, somewhat outgrowing a lot of them, which is a shame because I've had plenty of good coffees around them. But removing $200,000 for the Centreway Aviation themed playground project, I just don't think it's necessary. I disagree with the idea that you know, just because it's from open space reserve, we can keep it in. Like, we do have to be mindful of our money, no matter which bucket it comes from. But this is something that was asked for by the community for quite a long time. It has been discussed in this chamber quite a few times over quite a few years. It's gotten to the point where we seem to be fairly close, and now it comes up in an amendment like this. I just don't think it needs to be there. I am saved slightly by the fact that it says make the following changes subject to the consultation process. I feel like this is going to go down like a lead balloon if this is consulted on, because I would say most people would want to keep the funding in for our playgrounds. I'm of the understanding that what the officers put forward is the officers' obviously recommendation. The officers are recommending this based on our previous previous resolutions that have come through to council. So I completely agree with removing the project. In terms of reducing the fleet renewal program by $500,000 and the local road network by $500,000, personally I would have liked to have had a little bit more information in terms of what that would actually somewhat look like, and probably more of the impacts than just... I'm not necessarily against it, because I think that, again, we might get some further feedback back on it. But if there's such a officer's recommendation that it is needed, as Councillor Sypek touched on before, sometimes by deleting some of these things it can cost you more in the long run. But I'm definitely in favour of any excess in terms of the fleet. Well, yeah, it does need to go, but I would have hoped that the officers would have already done that. I will leave it at that. The point that I'm probably most disheartened by is definitely the idea of any motion that cuts playground funding. Love playgrounds, and I think that they are a huge asset to this municipality.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other
Mayor, may I ask that the motion be split and vote? It's two separate dot
between
points.
the three
Two dot points.
2 dot points? Thank you, Councillor Bedio. I'll take that under advisement. Would any other councillor like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I won't be supporting the amendment. And in particular, the open space reserve is not a bottomless bucket of money. And as I spoke to in the substantive, we have to be really careful and strategic about how we're spending our money. And the consideration I have for the Centreway playground renewal is one, that we do have a playground renewal program, and officers work hard to assess and prioritise all of our playgrounds around the municipality. There is $856,000 in the current budget for that program, coming from open space. By putting in one playground program, I don't think we're not cutting all playground renewals. We are simply circumventing, the process that we have of following the strategy and the prioritisation that is put to us through the playground renewal program. Centreway itself has also had, we have been up there for a lot of events lately, and I haven't noticed that children are waiting to go on play equipment. I think if they've seen standing around, it's maybe watching some of the roaming performers that have been available during those events. But I suppose my point there is that we also recently, and I don't remember exactly the budget amount that we put in, but we did have a decision recently to do a sort of mini precinct plan for Centreway. And I'm loath to put in extra infrastructure into Centreway where that, not master planning, but mini planning is underway. And there's several other improvements at Centreway. So look, the open space reserve, it's just not a convincing argument for me there, because I think that we have to be careful with how we spend all our money, including reserves. And I note also that the open space plan will be coming to us in the next financial year as well. That the budget includes $2,913,000 of implementation money for that. So there's plenty of money that's being strategically spent on our open spaces and our playgrounds. And the roads renewal program, just for a little bit of context there, the
Councillor Hodgson, your time has expired.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Seifert, for moving your amendment and for raising those questions. There's some good questions in there, and I have a question because I note the information that you read from with respect to the total cost of project, $200,000 from Open Space Reserve. However, our draft budget document indicates that in fact a quarter of the money, $50,000, is coming from council cash, so I'm not quite sure how to reconcile those two different pieces of information. That's something perhaps we can seek some feedback from officers over the next 8 weeks. And I guess that's the point of this particular part 3 of the budget, which I think was noted by someone in debate, is that the point 3 does say really clearly that these are changes subject to the consultation process. This is our draft budget going out for 8 weeks of consultation, and it's now our community's time to really look at what is being put forward and tell us what the priorities are, so that we can make sure we deliver what our community needs. I do note, though, that there are hundreds of playgrounds across our municipality, and what I was saying before was that our open space strategy hasn't yet come back to us to help us guide our prioritisation of those playground projects, and making sure that we don't just jazz up the ones that exist, but making sure we also provide playgrounds where there are communities for whom there is no playground within walking distance for families with their children. One of the other reasons that I identified this particular project in moving the motion was that we've had some criticism over the past few months about projects that were inserted into the draft or the final draft budget last year, and this is one of those projects that was put in there, but it was put in at a much lower price range. It was put in, I think, at $70,000 or $80,000, and the problem is that that wasn't well scoped, and it was with the advice is that it's actually going to cost almost 3 times the amount of money that was put in. So that's the reason that I guess I'm saying, well, if we've got a project here that's blown out of scope, we don't have any strategic advice that tells us that this is where that money needs to be spent from our open space reserve, maybe we can just be a little bit cautious about the way our funding has blown out here, and seek some feedback from our community before putting all of this particular money on this particular project that already has a playground servicing that particular community. So they're the questions that I guess are in my mind, and I look forward to the community sharing views with us over the next 8 weeks so we can make a decision about that in 8 weeks' time.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Sharp.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'll just say that the point there says subject to the consultation process. So this is a draft budget. I don't think we sort of, I'm fine to see how this all pans out in the wash, I think, and see how the final budget, how the consultation comes back through the draft budget for final budget, and then make a decision then on all that. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? I might, Councillor Better, you asked to split the motion, but you haven't spoken on debate. Do you think maybe just before I go to right of reply to Councillor Isa, if she wants it in 10 seconds, whether you could explain why do you want to split the motion?
Yes, because I support retaining part of, I support retaining the Centreway Aviation themed playground as part of the draft budget, but I'm happy to support the substantive motion in reducing the fleet renewal and the local road network.
Thank you. That's all I needed. Happy to split that. So I will put the vote on the amendment. I'll ask Councillor Isa whether, Councillor Sypek, whether you would like a right of reply.
Yes, I would, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Just in regards to the playground, now let's think about this. This is the officer's recommendation, and yes, it originally was at 80,000, but now the recommendation from the officers is that it can be fully funded from the open space reserve. Fully funded, not blown out, not going to break Moonee Valley's budget and we're going to be in financial trouble. It's fully funded by the open space reserve. It's the officer's recommendation. Now, we're not putting it in. It was in. What we're doing here with substantive is pulling it out so the kids don't have a playground. We're pulling it out, and I'm trying to retain it in there so then that way when it goes out as a draft, the community can tell us, okay, we don't want this, and then I'll happy to concede. But if the community want it there, well, let them see it. Let the whole community see it. If we take it out now, then how are we going to have consultation on social media or, phone a friend? I don't know. But leave it in there. I mean, what are you scared of? It's fully funded by Open Space Reserve, and the community wants it, like Councillor Burns said. The community has been wanting this playground. It's Centreway. It's a thriving shopping centre now. Go there 10 years ago, it was absolutely dead. And we've done all this work to make it great and good. And now we're going to pull a playground away from the children? Is that what we're going to do? Pull playgrounds from children when it's fully funded?
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. And apologies for mixing up the right of reply. So I will now put the amendment to the vote in two parts. I will first put to the vote A3 and the second dot point to strike through, remove 200,000 for the Centreway Aviation themed playground. All those in favour? There's Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Sypek. All those against? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Sharp and Tyson. I declare that lost. I will now put the second part of the amendment to the vote, A3 and the fourth dot point, the strike through of the Fleet Renewal Program and Local Road Network renewal. All those in favour? That is Councillor Sypek. All those against? Is Councillor Adams, Bedio, Byrne, Hodgson, Isa, Sharp, Tyson. I declare that lost. We now return to the substantive motion where Councillor Sypek has a minute 31 on the clock remaining.
Well, I'm speaking to the community now. Please, if you're watching this, have a look at what has just happened here. We are ripping away a playground from children, ripping it away, and have a look. I think my minute's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek.